here today to talk about the duplicitous linguistic trickery of gender ideology. Now, when we're discussing gender ideology as a whole, it's important to understand it holistically and from a nuanced perspective, and to dissect it. You'll notice when you talk to trans activists and radical gender extremists, they use the same handful of tricks and logical fallacies, propaganda, lies. So when you speak with normies, as kids call it these days, people on the fence, they'll hear these, they don't understand it because they don't have the same nuance and the same in-depth understanding. So it's important that we can dissect it, disseminate it to our friends in a calm and rational manner, and get to the truth. So before we get into it, we need to establish that gender ideology is a faith-based belief system. Very important. It's passed off as science and everything's all, science is 2022. But this is a faith-based belief system. 50-year-old autogynephilic male can simply declare that he's a woman with no test. There's no medical test, there's no skin sample, there's no brain scan, there's no blood test, there's no ultrasound that can prove or disprove his faith-based claim. It's not self-identified, it's self-declared, self-proclaimed. Let's use the correct language. Self-identification is a misnomer. It's a self-declaration. Now, often you'll notice many of the logical fallacies used by radical gender extremists. You see the same ones over and over. We will have false equivalencies, mitigating language, loaded presuppositions, Mott and Bailey, all designed to lower boundaries and psychologically manipulate people into being afraid to demonstrate and communicate their boundaries. I'll use a few examples. So for mitigating language, you may have all heard the term top surgery. Top surgery. That is a euphemism. Breast amputation, clinical term is bilateral double mastectomy. There you go. It's quite different. Top surgery or bilateral double mastectomy. Now, think about it from the perspective of a young woman. What is more confronting? What is more likely to give her pause? Using a QT euphemism or using...
Don't just watch your tone it down when you put it in your pocket.
Okay. So, these women, young teenage girls, are getting their breasts amputated because they're being psychologically manipulated. The interesting fact is that, say, 2010, post-2010 or pre-2010 era, before that, bilateral double mastectomies were almost exclusively for women over 30. And it was treatment for cancer and for treatments. Now, in England, the top two ages for bilateral double mastectomies is 18 and 16.
Just hold it.
The highest occurring ranges for bilateral double mastectomies in the UK, the women, is 18 and 16. You have to ask yourself, if it wasn't for this mitigating language, how many of these women would have made that mistake and still have their breasts 5 years later, not have this remorse, not have this suicidal ideation. False equivalencies and loaded presuppositions. So, trans women are women. It's a loaded supposition there. There's no such thing as trans women.
Thanks for that, Sal.
Transgender identified males. Now, when you use the correct term, it's not as punchy. Trans women are women, or transgender identified males are women. Now, I mentioned about lowering boundaries. To a casual observer that doesn't fully understand the issue, if you see autogynephilic males, some woman face, enter into woman spaces, invade their privacy, dignity, and respect, you're incentivized to not say anything when in your mind that's a trans woman. if you use real language, correct language, and you know that's transgender identified male or a male that simply declares himself, then you're not going to be psychologically manipulated into staying silent. You'll be more comfortable communicating your boundaries and standing up. Martin Bailey is another one. It's a principle where you have one statement that advances two positions. So a good example would be trans people exist or deserve to exist. So on one hand, it's very easy to say, yes, you deserve to exist. The other idea that's being pushed there is that by us standing up for our boundaries or refusing to engage in your shared delusion, we're not trying to erase your existence. Your existence is not predicated on your gender identity or your gender expression. So when people say these kind of things, they're trying to psychologically manipulate us. Yes, you're allowed to exist. Yes, you do exist. Us being gender critical or not believing that you can simply change your sex, most of all by simply saying so, does not mean that we are erasing your existence. That is a lie, that is psychological manipulation. Preferred pronouns. Preferred pronouns is another misnomer. There's actually no such thing. The correct term is coerced pronouns. Nobody has the right to claim agency over your beliefs and force you to manifest them through your speech.
Here.
Autogonophiles derive sexual gratification through viewing themselves as a woman or being treated as a woman. So if a man approaches you and demands that you non-consensually engage in his sexual fetish, that is not preferred pronouns, that is sexual assault.
Yes!
Woo! Woo! We do not consent to engaging in your sexual paraphilia, your fetish. Do not sexually assault us. There's no such thing as preferred pronouns. Reject preferred pronouns and frame them for what they really are, those coerced pronouns. The LGBT community. There's no such thing as the LGBT community. Everything after LGB is just straight people masquerading, embracing their identity. What does your gender identity have to do with sexual orientation? Absolutely nothing.
Sorry.
That is parasitic oppression by proxy. These people are trying to co-opt the struggles of a group and pass it off as their own. There's no such thing. A good way to think about this. Look at a 50-year-old autogynecophilic male who dresses up in hypersexualized fashion, goes into women's toilets, masturbates over thoughts about, like, what does he have in common with a 15-year-old girl with gender dysphoria?
Nothing!
What is this community? What is a 15-year-old teenage girl who has a maladaptive coping strategy? What does she have to do with a 50-year-old autogynecophilic male who derives sexual satisfaction and gratification from imposing and setting on women's sex-based boundaries? Other language that we should also reject: female to male, male to female. Male to trans, or female to trans. Just by saying this, you're propagating the idea, false belief, that it's possible to change sex. It's not possible to change sex. There's no such thing as female to male. It's female to trans.
Never.
All right, and that's all I have to say. Thank you. And